Good afternoon. Give me just one moment to make sure I'm live. I'm trying to keep dogs from barking. It's always a challenge. There's always a van or something that's pulling on the street when I'm getting ready to go live. So good afternoon, Carol Buckalew with Inky Bee Stampers. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I have a really pretty card here to share with you today. This card was made with the Layers of Beauty bundle, and that's going to be available for customers in the new annual catalog on May 1st. But my monitor is not really showing these colors off as beautifully as it could be, but the colors are pretty in pink, white, and grainy apple green. And so just really pretty and soft. And as you might be able to tell, we have some decorative masks included in this set. So these are the products that I'm using today. So the Layers of Beauty stamp set and the dies, the coordinating dies. And those are here. And primarily I'm using this large die to cut out, hey Mary, thanks so much for joining, to cut out the large masked image, but I've also used some of these leaf dies as well on my card. And then not only does the bundle include the stamp set and dies, but also the decorative masks, and we're going to be using those today, and just loads of fun. And then I've also used the 3D, the Cane Weave 3D embossing folder. Yeah, Mary, it is a beautiful, beautiful set. I've used a little bit of baker's twine in white, and these are the 2024-2026 in color shimmer gems, and these are just beautiful. So these gems, these shimmer gems, are in all of our new colors, and in colors that I haven't used today are Peach Pie, Petunia Pop, which is kind of a purplish pink, very pretty, Summer Splash, and then Shy Shamrock. Summer Splash and Shy Shamrock, you might think, are very similar, but, you know, there definitely is a difference. One has a blue hue. The Summer Splash has a blue hue, and the Shy Shamrock has a green hue. And then, of course, the Pretty in Pink, which is used on the card. Yes, Mary, this is my card for tomorrow's Happy Inkin' Thursday blog hop. So, yeah. So, I'm not going to make you watch me ink blend two separate panels, but this card actually takes a whole sheet of basic white cardstock, and I'm just going to secure my panel here with some Post-it tape. Oh, you used it too, Mary. I'm sure our cards are going to look very different because they usually do when that happens, but it's all good. And let me get my master right here. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but the masks, if I kind of move them to the light, it's a little hard. They actually are numbered 1 through 5. 3 of them will shade the flowers, and then the last 2 shade the leaves. So let's start with mask number 1. And I have already pre-marked my grid paper. So I made a mark for my cardstock, and I made a mark for my masks. These masks have a little notch cut into the top of them, close to where the number is etched in. And that just helps you line your masks up. So I'm going to do my best here to get this lined up, and go ahead and hold this down with some pieces of Post-it tape. You could use Post-it notes if you don't have Post-it tape. I love the Post-it tape. You can reuse it. It's great. And so let's get our ink out. And where are my inks and my blending brushes? So make sure you're using 2 different blending brushes here. Now, I want to just mention, before we get started, I could have I could have stamped this whole large image if I wanted to. You could stamp it in gray or black, whatever you might choose. I opted not to. I really liked the soft look, and so I just kind of went with it. And because I've already used this blending brush for my sample card, I want to keep the ink kind of light on my first mask. So this, what I'm saying is that this blending brush already has quite a bit of ink in it. And so I'm just going to kind of let the brush lay down a light layer. I might have to add a little bit more here. But I want to keep this light. So my first layer is going to be a bit light. And you can barely see that on the monitor. But I can see it. I can see that it's darker. So that is mask number 1. I'm going to go ahead and remove my tape. And we will go to mask number 2. And I'm going to use my little mark here on my grid paper. So if you've never done that before, that's a great trick, you know, to get your images lined up. And I'm going to go ahead and use my Post-it tape to hold this down once again. And I don't know if it's really hard to see. There are some very thin areas on these masks. And so when you're blending, you want to be very careful not to, you know, fold that little piece that's just, there's a little piece right here, and it's kind of sticking up because I've caught it with my blending brush. Hey Faith, you're not late. Thanks for joining. Oh, you were watching the wrong clock. That's funny. So just, you know, there are some delicate pieces on these masks. So be very careful, you know, when you're blending, that you don't accidentally push those backwards. So I did add some ink to my blending brush, and I want to go slightly darker on this layer. And, you know, these masks are creating different shade values for our flower. And so I'm going to kind of rub down on that particular areas just so that I don't get, you know, I don't get that little piece to push back there. All right, so that was mask number 2. Let me grab mask number 3. And then you can see how the color is building. It looks like my video is buffering. Hopefully, hopefully I don't lose you guys. I'm not quite sure why that is happening. And, you know, I'm using my lines, but I'm also visually looking to make sure that my masks are lined up. And that becomes especially important when you do the 2 masks for the leaves, because I did notice they don't line up precisely. So you do need to kind of use your lines that you've drawn on your grid paper, but also, you know, get a visual look on that as well. Now I'm going significantly darker, and I'm pushing much harder on this last layer for the flowers. And when I get this all inked up with the leaves, I'll hold this up closer so that you can see it. And we are all done with the Pretty in Pink ink. Well, that's a mouthful, Pretty in Pink ink. So we can remove this mask. And we are going to go to mask number 4. And this is our leaves, and we're going to do these in Granny Apple Green. So I'm lining this up with my marks on my grid paper, and I can see that I need to move this mask over just slightly to the right. Otherwise, it's going to, the colors are going to overlay. The green will overlay on the pink, and I don't want that. So that's what I mean. You need to use your grid lines, but then also visually check to make sure that everything is gonna, you know, blend for you properly. Okay, we're going to Granny Apple Green, and a brush dedicated for that color. And again, on the first layer, I'm going on the light side, and I realize that the monitor may not show these colors as beautifully. Well, I can say that they're not. The monitor is not showing these colors as beautifully as they are in person. That's always the way. And again, this brush has some green ink already in it. So I'm going to go ahead and, not waste that and just push down harder on my brush. But I'm not looking for a super dark coat on this mask. On the second mask, we'll go a lot darker. And I think that looks good for that one. And then our final mask for the leaves here is number 5. It is one of my favorite greens as well. Mary Greeny Apple Green is the bomb. It really, really is. And again, I'm just going to make sure that this mask is lining up with those leaves and just make a slight adjustment here. Bear with me. All right, that looks good. And then we're going to go darker here now. So I'm really pushing down on that ink pad. And I want this second mask for the leaves significantly darker, just to give that contrast. And you're seeing me kind of dip my, I'm dipping my blending brush and then I'm kind of swirling off here to the side. That's just to avoid, any streaks in the ink that might be sitting on top of that blending brush. But that is mask number 5. So let me pick this up for you and hold it up so I can show you what we have here. And I like this Post-it tape because it releases so easily. But that is our inked image, and that is without stamping the image first. It's a softer look, and so you can do whichever you prefer. This would be gorgeous in Lemon Lolly, Daffodil Delight, and Crushed Curry, because you could really graduate the colors, I think, and that might be really interesting. So that's something I want to try with this set. But you can see that image, this is a 1/4 sheet of cardstock. It takes up almost, the whole piece. I mean, it's pretty tall of an image. And I just wanted to share with you how I use those masks. And I have already created 2 of these. I did these earlier this morning, so I've got 2, and I have used the large die from the Layers of Beauty set to cut these out. And I am so we have a sketch challenge for tomorrow, and I immediately thought of this set, and I'm going to look at my sample card just to make sure I get these laid out kind of like I did on my previous card. So it kind of looks like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Post-it tape, reuse it, and I've already embossed my panel here. This is a 5 1/4 by 4 inch panel, and I've already embossed that panel with the Cane Weave 3D embossing folder. Let me grab some more Post-it tape. Excuse me. I don't want to use the Post-it tape that has ink on it because I don't want to smudge any ink onto my freshly mashed flowers here. And then let me line this one up kind of with how I did the one this morning. Let me see here. I think it was kind of like that, something like that. All right, and I'm just going to use some fresh Post-it tape because I don't want to get ink on my panel, my embossed panel. And I'm just going to secure that. And you'll see here why in a minute. So this is my card layout, right? I've got flowers in this corner, flowers in this corner. Oh no, is this your exact card, Mary? Please tell me it's not. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to lightly trace the back edge of these flower panels with my pencil. And that is going to help me apply glue to these panels. I don't want glue in the centers of these panels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that tape, the Post-it tape. And since I had a specific design, oh no, Mary, I'm so sorry. Oh no, you stamped first. Okay, good. It's funny that we would think of the same thing. Go figure. So what I'm going to do, so I did, you know, I've got my corner marked here, as you can see. So I want to run glue just on the inside of that penciled line because I don't want glue in this open area. I want a little bit of lift on these flowers. So I'm just going to run a bead of glue on the inside of that pencil line. And I know that it's going to go that way, and I'm just going to kind of flip this over and line that panel up with my pencil line and give that a good press down. I use that trick a lot with the pencils on the reverse side. It just makes it easier for me to make sure that I'm applying adhesive exactly where I need it to be. And we all know that adhesive can be a mess if it gets where you don't want it. Alrighty, and then this one is going to go down in, let me get oriented the correct way here. And this one's going down this way. I know I'm making it look more complicated than I intended. Let me get that lined up with my pencil line. And that looks good, and we can give it a good press down. I know that you showed me a card that you were working on with this set on Monday, but I don't know that I saw the completed card, Mary. Oh, I feel badly. I wonder if it was like subconscious. I don't think your card was completed when I saw it. I remember seeing the flowers, and I noticed that they were stamped on your card, but I don't know that I saw it put together. We need to communicate better, right? Oh, okay, gotcha. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to slip my tweezers underneath these panels just to give that a little bit of lift. Those flowers, just a little bit, whoops, just a little bit of lift. And then we're going to, let me see here, I'm getting ahead of myself. And now I'm going to trim off these pieces by turning to the reverse side. And I'm going to cut flush with my embossed panel. So for this step, you know, take your time and just make sure that you're getting a straight edge and nice and flush. And I am holding the inside of this blade up against that embossed panel. And when I get to this corner, I want to cut straight up. And you will see why here in a moment, why I need to do that. And then I'm going to come over here and get this edge trimmed up. And I'm off screen, so sorry about that. Alrighty. And just, you know, visually check, make sure you've got everything trimmed up, nice and square. All right. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing for this corner. I've got my scissors, that blade pushed up against my embossed panel, and I'm going to take my time to make sure that I get a nice straight cut. And when I approach this corner, I am going to follow through and make sure that the cut is straight all the way through. Hush, that's your daddy. Daddy came home and the girls want to woof at him when they see him. All right, and we're going to trim up this corner. Same thing. Nice straight cut. Shh, Maisie. Shh. So sorry, guys. Nothing I can do about the barking dog. Other than to tell them to hush, and they don't listen. You get down. That's Daddy. Go get Daddy. Go get Daddy. All right. So this is what we have on our Great Minds Think Alike. Well, let's go with that. Yeah, she is that. Well, they actually, Maisie is kind of my girl, and my youngest son's girl, and Mackenzie favors my husband and our older son. It's really funny how that happened. I don't know. All right, so I want you to look at the trim pieces here. You're not helping, Maisie. You need to help Mommy and be quiet. All right. So we're looking at the trim pieces here. I've got two that are a bit shorter in length, and then two that are a bit longer in length. And I don't know about you, but I like happy accidents. So when I was making this card, I'm like, I hate to waste all of this masking that I did on these beautiful roses, right? And so what I thought of was, I wonder if I could use these on the inside panel. Hence the importance of cutting these images straight, as straight as possible. And so I thought, wouldn't they look pretty decorating either side of our inside panel on this card? And so that's what I did. And so those panels are going to actually sit on either side of the inside panel. And so to me, that's a happy accident. I love that that is kind of how it turned out, and it's really quite pretty on the card. Kind of dresses up the inside. I'm back with my Granny Apple Green ink, and I've just kind of placed these two trimmings to the sides, just so I can get an idea of where I can stamp my inside sentiment. And the inside sentiment says, "You make my heart smile," and I'm getting a little piece of something off of there before I stamp. And I'm just going to make sure I'm getting a good impression. That looks good to me. My ink pad probably needs re-inking. And let me just pull this a little bit closer to me and somewhat straight, and we'll go right about there with the stamping, and hope I get a nice impression. That is perfect. All right, and we'll fix that up here in just a moment. And then my inside label, I've just got a small piece of basic white. Our outside sentiment says "Grateful for You." Go ahead and get that inked up and stamped. And there we go. Perfect. Okay. Close up our ink here. And let's go ahead and get some things put together. That's pretty much it for the card. There really isn't, you know, once you get your panels ink blended and die cut and glued up, it goes pretty fast. Just apply a little liquid glue here on our sentiment label. And I'm going to mat that up to a piece of Granny Apple Green, just because I think it looks so pretty. I love that white and green and pink combination. So that is our inside panel. Set that aside to dry just a minute. And then for our trimmings, I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue here along the straight edge just sparingly and all the way out to the edges here. And go ahead and center those as best as you can. And try to get those edges lined up as best as you can. It looks pretty good. And then I am going to take my paper snips. So if there's any pieces sticking above or below your panel, go ahead and hold those scissors straight up against your panel and give those a trim straight across. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. Alrighty. So that is one side, and we'll go ahead and get our other trimming piece on the inside panel. But I just thought it added such a pretty touch, and I felt better that I was using I was using up these these pretty flower pieces. And go ahead and center that up as best as I can. Now it looks like I may not have gotten this one cut as straight, but that's okay. I'm making sure I'm covering the inside panel, and it's this corner in particular. So when I flip this over, I'll have the opportunity to trim that up straight. You just want to take your time, and I'm sure it's very hard for you to see. I can barely see it, but I had just a piece of that panel to trim off that edge that I didn't trim perfectly straight. So you do have an opportunity to kind of make corrections if you're not trimming your die cuts exactly to the embossed panel as you should be. So that is the inside panel. Well, let's get that put onto our Granny Apple Green. Hey Sharon, thanks so much for joining. We're working with the Layers of Beauty bundle, which is includes the decorative masks, and just such a pretty bundle. Alrighty. Go ahead and get that inside our card base. And I'm just looking for an equal reveal around that panel. And I've got stuff sticking to me. Let me just scooch that over. This is why I like glue, because I don't always, my eyeballs don't always see perfectly, but that looks good to me. And I've got a bit of a rough edge here. I need to replace my trimming blade, but I've been holding off because I've got some designer series paper I need to cut up, a lot of actually. And, oh, thank you, Sharon. And yeah. All right, let's get our main panel on. Now, this panel, you could lift up with dimensionals if you'd like. I chose to just glue it down. This would be a low profile card for mailing for sure. The only thing that has popped up with dimensionals is the sentiment label, but you could certainly, you could certainly pop it up with dimensionals. I will say that this cane weave 3D embossing folder creates some deep divots in the paper. So if you're using dimensionals, you're going to have to really, really use quite a few in order to get, I think, this embossed panel to adhere down. That's just my take. I could be wrong, but I know that even with the liquid glue, when I made my first card, I had to really press down to make sure that it was, adhering like it should be. It kept wanting to pop up just because there's so much texture in that embossing folder. I have gone ahead and pre-die cut some little leaves. I am going to attach one of these to the back of my sentiment label, just off the left side here of my sentiment label, just like that. And we'll go ahead and let that dry. And then I've got a little 5-leaf set here that I'm going to tuck in right about there. And then a little 2-leaf set that I'm going to tuck in over here. So we'll go ahead and get those glued down. We lose eyeball calibration as we get older. Goodness, I can't read either. Obviously, I can't see to read either. Too funny. Too funny, Mary. All right, let's get this tucked in over here. Let me use my tweezers just to lift that up. And let's put that right about there. And as I was sliding that around, let me see here. I'm not happy with that. Oh, it just broke. It just broke my little die cut. That's okay. I'm going to save it. I'm going to take that little leaf out. Let's try that again. There we go. And that's just fine. And let's get this one glued up. Oh, thank you, Sharon. Appreciate it. My glue is drying up because I've had the cap off. Don't you love how that happens? All right, there we go. And let's tuck this one right over here. There we go. And we will go ahead and get some dimensionals on our sentiment label, and we are almost done. Looks like I'm running over just a few minutes. I try not to. I try to keep it in 30, but sometimes, you know, I get to talking. All right. Then we might as well put one in the center there. And we'll go ahead and get this popped on. And you might notice I didn't pull out my envelope yet. And that's because usually when I make a card for the second time, there's some improvement I want to make on the card. And so when you're making it for a second or third time, definitely gives you the opportunity to make changes if you want to. So our sentiment's going to go down in the right corner here. I'm leaving about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch between my panel and the bottom edge of my card there. And that looks good to me. Now these little pieces are going to get discarded. That is the excess from our trimming that we did on the corners. Just getting rid of this stuff out of my way. Let's tie a quick little bow here for our card front. Looks like I finished off that spool of thread. I use white more than I use any other color. This baker's twine likes to twist. I don't know why. There we go. And I'm gonna, you know what, I'll cut those tails once I get it on the card. I'm gonna use a mini glue dot. I actually glued the center of the bow down when I attached the other bow to my original card. But I'm able to roll these glue dots up, and that little bow is going to go right on the upper right hand corner, and just tuck that glue dot under the bow just like that. And let's give these a little trim, a little bit shorter. There we go. And then I have some of the 2024-2026 in color shimmer gems. And these are just beautiful. I don't know if you can see the shimmer on them or not. Yeah, a little bit. And so I'm going to use the Pretty in Pink. These are all the new in colors. And I'm just going to pop a few of these down on my card front. Get a big one and a couple little ones. Oh, let's get another big one. These are so pretty. Whoops. It jumped. It jumped. And let's put that one. Let's put that one right there. Just give them a little push. Make sure they're adhered. So on my original card, in the envelope, I did use the small flower stamps. Sorry, off screen. I did use the small flower stamps to stamp onto the envelope front and the envelope flat. This morning, when I was inking up and pre-die cutting my panels using the mask, I went ahead and inked up the envelope front and the envelope back. And I thought that was just beautiful. I kind of like it better than the stamped flowers. The stamped flowers are very pretty. This makes more of a statement for sure. So when you're doing your cards for a second time and you see that opportunity to kind of improve on what you first did, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. So that is our card for today with the Layers of Beauty bundle, which includes stamp sets, dies, and decorative masks, cane weave 3D embossing folder, and then I use some of the in color shimmer gems on the card. Hope you enjoyed it. Please join me back here next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. Show off the inside of our card there again one more time. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.